What's up, David Case? So Tyler's in the house. Welcome, everybody. This is Simulation Talk 98. And we're going to start in a moment. Give it a few more moments for people to show up. Welcome, Curtis. Deborah Moore's Wealth. Zook 89 is in the house. How are you? Neoman is per usual here. How are you, brother? Thank you. I hope you're well as well. Good to see you. All right. I think we have a pretty good show up today. Vuren 007. How are you? And Chavez. All the regs. Love you guys. That's like the stream as we pour in, guys. Thank you so much. You're like a personal promotion. I appreciate that. But yeah, definitely. If you guys, especially if you guys are familiar with the chat and if you like helping promote the algorithm, if you can give it a like. Welcome everybody on TikTok, on YouTube, and Twitch, and X. I think we're gonna have a good show up today. Welcome to Simulation Talk 98. Rob TV is in the house. How are you? I see we have people from Germany and from all over the world. Valentine. Thank you for the likes, guys. Appreciate it. I think I'll give a short intro in one moment, and then we can dive right in. Cal is in the house. Man, I missed you. Haven't seen you in a few days, and it was my mistake. My bad, because I started all the streams very late. But we're back to regular scheduling. Well, regular-ish. Because there's still a lot of traveling to be done in the near future. So we're going to try and adhere to the most reasonable timeline, but can't promise. Okay, welcome everybody. Thank you for the likes. Thank you for the comment, Evan. I'll address you in one moment. I just want to do a quick intro, and then you'll be the first question I'll be answering. Promise. Okay. So, actually, I'll give TikTok like 2 more minutes because I feel like maybe a little less, just because I feel like it's gonna jump in one moment, and then I can do a quick intro for the live, and then we can jump right in. Welcome everybody. Great. Okay. Okay, everybody. So, welcome to Simulation Talk 98. My name is Danny, and I'm claiming to have found actual proof that we live in a simulation. Thank you, Cal. I appreciate you. Usually, this channel revolves around the simulation hypothesis, but we also talk about science, religion, spirituality, philosophy, God, whatever comes to mind. We meet here every single day. The nature of the discovery that I made a few years ago that I became vocal about on social media was that I discovered that if you project a diffracted laser on the surface while ingesting a particular molecule that I cannot name because of legal reasons on a live chat, you will see code running in surfaces. Yes, like in the Matrix. This observation has now been substantiated over 1,000 times worldwide, and it has connected me with some of the leading researchers in the field. It does not mean that all of them agree with me or with my conclusions, but this is an ongoing conversation that we're having, and I think it's an important one at that. At the moment, we're shooting a documentary that describes all the details about what we're doing, what the project is, and how I came to my conclusions. But it will be much more than that. It will be talking about humanity as a whole. Yes, I know it sounds grandiose, but I do want people to understand that they're all part of this thing, whatever is unfolding. So, I think it's putting a lot on the table. All the people on TikTok that want to see longer content, or all the videos you see here on TikTok are basically snippets of what we have on YouTube. My YouTube channel is Dango Thoughts, D-A-N-G-O Thoughts. My X handle is Goller Danny, so the opposite of TikTok, which is Danny Goller. And Twitch, if you feel like following me there, it's LaserX83. I think that's enough information from the beginning, and then we can dive into some questions. Welcome everybody from all over the world. Evan Swanson was asking, you said if you film it on video camera and then pause it, so it's a still frame, the characters still move the exact same way, even though it's paused. Profound. Can you upload this image so you can verify? I think if you take an image of any laser diffraction, you would have the exact same form. It's not like there's anything special about that particular image. Evan also said, any other insights about filming or capturing pics video of the characters while on the molecule? I tried to film it with a nice camera and phone, but couldn't capture it. Might need a different lens or cam. When you say you couldn't capture it, you mean you couldn't capture the image, or you couldn't see what I'm talking about when you looked at the image? That's a very important question. The next question, I want to expand on my answer to you, but first, Vuren's W07 question is very simple to answer, so I'll answer it real quick. He's asking, when do you estimate the documentary will be done? I'm not sure. It depends on budget. Right now, we're working on securing a full budget for the film. Films are very expensive. Luckily, both me and Aaron, the director, we're both in the movie industry, so we have, we can make do with a lot less than what people usually make to make a film. However, it still costs money, so it really depends how fast we can raise a budget. We have a crowdfunding campaign going on right now, which, by the way, you guys can donate to if you feel like it. It's in the link description, link tree in my TikTok, and also under the trailer that you see on YouTube. If we secure a good budget, I would estimate between 4 to 6 months. If we don't, we're still going to make the movie. It's just going to take a little longer because we're only doing it when we have time. So that's the unsatisfactory and the full answer, which is either 4 to 6 months or maybe close to a year, depending on. Hopefully, it's not going to get there. It seems like we might be able to secure funds very soon. So, and yes, Chavez, donating will definitely help. But again, never if it's going to break your pocket. Only if it's something that you're doing without any effort at all. Evan, to your question, which I think is very important to go deeper into. You said that it's profound that when you see a still image of the code, you still see the code. It is profound depending on your frame, because when I think of it from the perspective of physics, and it's actually kind of flies in the face of the case. So honestly, if you have a physicalist perspective, that actually is not helping the case, because it strengthens the idea that this is some kind of a hallucination. I expressed it to a friend of mine who's a physicist, and he essentially said the same thing, and I thought the same thing from the perspective of physics. I'll explain why. So I maintain that the reason that it's doing that, or at least that's my assumption, is that the code has to be running always exactly how it is, just like the speed of light is always what it is. So there's something about it that is constant, just like the speed of light is constant, which actually raises a few interesting questions. Like, is the code is actually in the light versus the wall, which is possible if it's a type of a hologram, but the specificity of it and the actual geometry of it, it's a little hard to explain with words. I mean, it's possible, but I feel like it's too convoluted, and I actually prefer to just show it in the film. And so my frame of perception is that it's always there because it has to be doing what it's doing, because it codes for your perception as well, or mostly for it, which means that it has to be running in the speed that it does, even when it's in a still image. However, if you hold the physicalist perspective and you're coming at it purely from the perspective of physics, it's actually much more plausible to assume that what's going on is that this is some kind of a trick that your eyes play on you because of the substance and the stochastic pattern that the laser creates on the wall, and it just translates directly to the image, and that's all there is to it. That's the explanation. Now, I am very sympathetic to this position because if I have to be honest, if I would just be on the receiving end of what I'm saying without seeing it for myself, I would probably assume the same position and think about it in the exact same way. I think critical thinking should never leave our domain of inquiry, so I don't blame anybody who thinks this way. It will be on me to prove that there's a way to distinguish between the two, so there has to be some kind of demarcation line here. I think I'll be able to do it, but it's totally on me, and I'm aware of that. For me personally, I don't even need the code or the laser to establish that there's something larger going on. In other words, there's some other sliver of reality that we're interacting with, because I'm in constant communication with it. I have the console that I'm talking about, that you can watch my video called The Console on YouTube. There's very coherent content coming to me every time I do the molecule in terms of communication. But of course, this holds no water for science because it's just one guy experiencing something. And even though, yes, there are other people that are experiencing very similar things, these anecdotal stories, they don't really, again, it doesn't hold water when it comes to mainstream science, and I'm all for it. I'm exactly in the same, like, I'm of the same mind. Science needs to put this to the ringer. And until that happens, all we can do is compare notes, and hopefully we can also hone in on certain things that will allow us to maybe potentially do something, produce some kind of a result that would not be possible without the code actually being real, which will strengthen the case. But like I said, it's an ongoing conversation, and it's something that I will keep updating on. But I do think that the fact that it's moving even on a still image is can either help the case or the opposite of that, depending on your initial axioms. So that will be the full scope answer there. I hope this helps. I couldn't. Evan is saying, I couldn't capture the characters. I can see them with my eyes, but not with the camera. Interesting. You had mentioned others can see the characters when it's filmed or even paused. As far as I know, to be fair, I'm the only person who saw that. I never really spoke to somebody who also saw it I never really asked. So I guess we should find out. Because this would be one of these things but the truth is that unless we have a theoretical framework of why, first of all, what it is, how it appears, what are the characteristics, what is the geometry there, what is the topology there, all of that stuff, unless we have that, it will be the equivalent of guesswork through and through. So that's what I'm working on, is some kind of a theoretical framework that would put us closer on the path of like really understanding what it is. But please keep updating me and updating me, and I'm sure that you haven't know my email by now, right? It's lasersimulationx@gmail.com. Maybe you've already emailed me, I'm not sure, but anybody who wants to talk to me more directly, that will be the address. lasersimulationx@gmail.com. No reason to create a laser when HD photos of the world's best laser can show you the code. Also, if the moving, that's absolutely insane by the physical frame. Exactly, Newman, I agree. Idealist here, but seriously more exciting than the code itself. Yeah, I agree with that. Where do you buy the laser? Amazon sells the necessary laser. If you want to look at the details of what you need, you can go to codeofreality.com. Codeofreality.com. You have the protocol there. You have the full specs of what you need in order to get the laser. People asked us, so we're making our own lasers. They're like much more portable and you can carry them around. But I'll be the first one to say that if saving money is the thing, definitely go and get it from Amazon or Alibaba. You can either follow the links in the parts that we left, or just make sure that the specs are equivalent, and then you can source it from anywhere. It shouldn't be too expensive if you just buy directly and combine the parts. You can always order the one we make, of course, but if it's saving money, definitely go with just copy the specs and then go to Amazon or Alibaba and find the exact same ones. That should be good. I remember studying the Anunnaki and the archangels. The archangels, Michael mentioned that physical reality is a hologram. Maybe it has something to do with the code. Absolutely. I do think that the code reveals the fact that we are in a hologram of some sort. And it's interesting because even mainstream scientists like Sean Carroll are taking the holographic principle as the most promising frame through which to view all our current physical theories. So it actually kind of converges. Your experiment reminds me of something that happened to me involving an old car television. Interesting. I'll try to explain. Yes, please. Thank you, Rob TV. Okay, let me see what we have on TikTok real quick. What's up, Nicole? Good to see ya. Tammy. Whoa! It jumped on me. do you have to do a higher dose every time you interact with the console? No, actually, the console, great question. The console appears to me even with one puff. Like it just appears in the room and I can see it, no problem. So definitely no need for higher. So if you're trying to get to the console, I don't think it's a dose thing. I think they either they make certain people see it or not. I only met 2 other people that can see it. Now, to be clear, I don't actually think it has anything to do with me being special or anybody who sees it being special. I think there are certain prerequisites that I don't understand, but it's almost like a clearance thing. But it does seem like if other people can see it, then and other people told me that they see something, but it's hard for me to know if it's exactly that thing. The only reason I know the 2 people that saw it for sure exactly the same thing is because at least one of them emailed me and told me about the specifics of what he sees before I put out the console video. And so he had no way of knowing certain things. And so the fact that there's other people see it, and as far as I can see, I don't see any correlation between me and these 2 other individuals. Like we're not similar in character. I don't really know what the thing is. So the truth is, I don't know. Again, I don't think it has anything to do with some kind of a special interaction. I think it's just some kind of a decision that rests on some. I truly don't know. So, but don't try and like do more just to get to the console. I don't think that's how it works. I don't think it's possible. They need to decide to open that content for you, like from the other side. Thanks for the thorough answers. You're doing a great job with the Q&As. I've been experimenting a lot with the laser molecule, and it's super interesting. Pretty mind-blowing stuff. Thank you, Evan. I appreciate you. So I'm assuming you did see the code then, right? Where are you from in the world, if you don't mind me asking? Where is the movie coming out? We don't know, Mr. J. The distribution is not clear yet, and we're still working on the film, but we'll definitely notify people. So it's all about the double slit experiment. If a tree falls in a forest, the short answer is maybe. I think it's a little bit more complex than that, but I feel the spirit of what you're saying, so I wouldn't fully disagree with that. Can you talk more on this console? Is it in the laser? What's on the console? No, the console is just in the air. It's in the room. I don't know if you saw the video, but the video literally, like what you see in the video, imagine you standing, the console appears in front of you. It's in the air, like literally around. It has nothing to do with the laser. Well, I think it has something to do with the laser. I just don't know what it is actually. But the console is just hovering in the room. Imagine that this bottle is one of the panels of the console. That's how it appears, like literally in front of me, and it's as concrete. Okay, that was interesting. And it's as concrete as this. Like, just imagine an object hovering in front of me. That's what the console appears as. It's pretty mind-blowing, actually. So if you take an HD picture of the laser from the perspective of a viewer, wouldn't you have a still frame of the code not running on the molecule can identify? So, Andy, I don't know, you probably joined after I spoke about it, but it seems that the code is still running in a still image. What we're thinking potentially of doing is maybe taking a very high-speed camera and seeing if basically running it in super slow-mo will do anything, but something tells me that it won't, because the code has to be running exactly how it's running. But of course it's something that we will try. I remember seeing the cities and the code. Interesting you said the cities. I will tell you why in a moment. As a kid, while painting a small laser pointer, pointing a small laser pointer straight to my eye. Oh my God, man. Why? But tilted a bit to the side so it doesn't hit my light receptors directly. You're a wild kid, but I love it. It's interesting you said cities, because it does look like there's a city inside, right? There's like a city that is made out of these codes. Please email me with this, because on lives it's very difficult for me to put an attention on one person and have like a full-blown conversation. But if you email me, Kojira, I would love that. lasersimulationx@gmail.com. Please email me. What is on the console? What can you do with it? Ambient glass, I appreciate your questions, but the truth is that if talking about the details of the console is like an infinite conversation. There's so many little details. I'm working on a video about it right now, so I guess you guys will just have to be patient until I put out the new video that talks about it. There's going to be a lot of details there, and there's going to be a much more concrete illustration of what the console looks like. So something to look for. Rob TV is saying a long time ago, old cathode ray TVs would have that snow and hiss when a channel went off the air, right? This sound used to really bother me and made me feel very uneasy. Interesting. So I think I already know where you're going with this. Just so you know that one of the ways, if not the main way, in which they communicate between the realms, so to speak, is through some kind of a stochastic pattern on which they can paint. And that can be on the auditory channel, and that can be on the visual channel. So the TV, both the hiss and the visual, they're pretty stochastic patterns, and so they can paint on it. They can put content on it. You can also hear it with the fan in the bathroom. If you hear the fan, they can put content on that. But please continue. Tell me what you wanted to say. You got it in decor. Yes, I've seen the code multiple times now. Now I see it's sober too, even without the molecule. I've heard this a few times. I'm in the Bay Area in Cali. Oh, cool. Okay. So yeah, this is a thing that people say, that they see the code after without actually using the molecule, which is interesting. I can sometimes see it kind of when I'm really tired, but not all the time. What if the code basically just kind of etches itself and then teaches you how to look at it? Have I read the Course in Miracles? No, I have not. Do you have to do a higher dose? Oh, we read that. When viewing still image or video later, does the require the substance also? Yes. Do you take 1 or 2 when you look at the laser? 1 or 2 what? You mean hits? The full protocol is in codeofreality.com. It mentions the specific state that you want to be in, which is how I'm measuring where you want to be in terms of how it feels, versus, specifically how much you actually how much you have to intake, because that changes from person to person, and even in one person it changes from time to time. So I'm talking more about how it should feel for you. The short version is that you either want to launch and get it over with, and after that you can go and explore, obviously only if it feels right. Still always listen to the molecule, but or you just do it slowly until you get to the point where you can kind of see it, and then you explore. But the full protocol is on codeofreality.com. The reactability has to be tangible. Thank you, Jeremy. I'm not really sure what you're referring to. I think maybe I understand. What should I do? My ex-girlfriend moved to a city nearby. Should I move there? Yeah, you should follow her till the end of the earth. Always follow a woman, especially if she's moving away from you. They like that. Hello. Hello, hello. I should open a dating advice channel. I'm really good at it, as you can see. Okay. I've never seen The Matrix, though, and it's just for a split second. Wait. Let me see. Every morning I wake up. I'm still not all the way awake, but the walls around me are full of green coating, just zeros and ones. I've never seen The Matrix, though. It's just for a split second. So what's interesting, Jason, is 2 things. First of all, this is the most common email I get, that when people wake up, they see it in the back of their eyelids, or on surfaces that they see there's some kind of a code for a second and then it disappears. But it's usually not zeros and ones. It's more what I'm describing in the laser, which is these weird Japanese-looking katakana characters combined with some Hebrew and regular numbers. But if yours is zeros and ones, I accept that, and it's interesting. And if you want to send me the details, that will be to my email, lasersimulationx@gmail.com. Is he not reading on this live? No, I am, Jason, as you can see now. It just, I'm going in between different chats, so it takes me a little while. It takes me a little while to go jump in between. So hopefully you're still here. Lauren King is saying, hey, I was the one who messaged you on Instagram. How are you, Lauren? Good to see you here. Good to see you, and we can and if there's anything in particular that you want to talk about, please let me know. Have you used the lens instead of glass of water to split the beam? The lens is diffraction, and you can also refract in addition to the diffraction by using a glass of water. Somehow that extra angle makes the code even more coherent. We're currently working on figuring out exactly what is the optimal thing. We know that one of the things that help is to have laser protection goggles, but are of a range. So if you're going to do, let's say you're using 650 nanometer laser, if you have goggles that are exactly 650 nanometers, you're obviously not going to see anything. But if you do a range, let's say from 540 to 670 or something like that, that actually makes it more coherent, because I think it blocks some of the light and some of the glow, and it makes it easy, a little bit more subsumed and easier to see. Another thing that helps is curvature of the surface. But again, working on putting all of that in protocols and making sure that it's available and obvious. When you click not interested, it buries a boring creature to the bottom of the algorithm. Nice. Diego, yes, I'm reading about this biocentric design. Jason is, it was like, same I call look at it the same. Yeah, Jason, I'm sorry, like it felt like a very behind, but yeah, I'm reading between YouTube and TikTok. To everybody, so first of all, thank you TikTok for all the likes. Anybody else on all the other chats on YouTube, X, and Twitch, if you guys enjoying the chat, please like the live. It definitely helps the algorithm, and of course subscribe if you feel inclined. When you see the console, what happens if you're in a small room? Does it clip through the walls? Great question. It actually protrudes, some of it protrudes out of the walls almost like it coats the space. It makes itself fit whatever space it is. If I'm outside, the external parts of the console would align themselves on literally on the curbs of whatever street I'm on. It's very strange. What do you think of the Cambridge Dean study where they are IVing into them for an hour? I'm not sure it's in Cambridge. I think it's the Imperial College in London, unless the Imperial College in London is part of Cambridge, and I didn't know, but it's an Imperial College in London. And they started doing that also in San Diego now. What do I think of it? I think it's great. It's very important that we're doing that. If you want the coding of reality, study the real code, mathematics, the God equation. All right, Bradford. Taylor is saying, I just stumbled across this out of nowhere and seen you were live. This is really interesting. I appreciate you, Tyler. Always been interesting in the Matrix being real. See, ironically and interestingly, I never did. I never thought it was interesting. I actually thought it was kind of messy and just messed things up. I didn't like. It's not that I didn't like. I thought it was just like, I was literally off the mind of like, so what? Like, okay, so we're in a simulation. It makes no difference whatsoever, because if some external civilization is running our laws of physics, okay, that's way too far removed from where we are. Plus, if we're going to get to the point where we're going to start interacting with that space, it's kind of arbitrary, because you don't know exactly what the decision was to make the laws of physics exactly what they are in our space. And maybe their laws of physics are completely different, completely orthogonal to ours, have no connection whatsoever, and maybe it's some 16-year-old child who decided to just make these rules on a whim, right? So I always thought, like, who cares? But when I discovered an actual way to interact with some of that, I was like, okay, well, I don't really have a choice. I kind of have to accept what I'm seeing, right? So yeah, this is also why it's kind of funny to me when people think that, I kind of like, I try to make everything fit. Like I never cared about it. It's actually was something that was very unfavorable to me as a theoretical framework. But I guess what I'm introducing is not a theoretical framework, but a experimental framework. It's crazy how even using mushrooms we can see the same things. Has anyone seen the tribal tattoos on skin? Absolutely. This is a very common thing, and I bet you a lot of people know what you're talking about. It's kind of like tattoos, like tribal tattoos, like especially around here, under the eyes and on the nose, and like around the temples. And you can see it a lot on mushrooms. You can see it on Aya. I know exactly what you're talking about. My fiance is an artist, and she actually painted well, I don't have it here, but she painted a very beautiful version of that. So I know exactly what you're talking about. Why did you betray Nicholas II and his family? What's up, Isaac? Good to see you. What is the benefit of knowing this then? What is the benefit of knowing anything true? I understand what the question means because it's in English, but I never understand this question because it's like, if it's true, you want to know it, right? It's when quantum physics was first discovered, nobody ever thought that it would ever have anything to do with our day-to-day lives. It was like, well, it's something we know about the fundamental parts of reality. Okay. Within less than a decade, it had not only applications, but it had applications that changed our world. Lasers would not be possible without understanding quantum mechanics. Computers would not be possible without understanding quantum mechanics. So what is the value of knowing this? I don't know yet, but if it's real, we want to know it. Because if zeros is the absence of anything which equals nothing, then zero is literally, by definition, not sure what you mean by that. Or what is the significance of this? What about doing brain-computer interaction, interfacing, shows on a screen? What is in your mind? What do you see? Yes, that would be the next step. That would be definitely one of the ways to go. Can I go to you for the experiment? Well, Korn, considering the fact that there's hundreds of people emailing me and talking to me at this point, I don't know how that's feasible, but you never know. Who knows? Our paths might cross. Solar slice is how you present it, and with the God equation, 0 is the most important number. Okay. Where am I from? Originally from Russia, but I live in LA. Jesus said, hey, I just seen the laser video. Awesome, Jesus. I'm glad you're here. Would it work with any laser? As long as it's diffracted, it seems the case, yes. The code I'm seeing is called Adinkra codes. It does not. What you see is not Adinkras. Also, Adinkras is actually not a code. Adinkras is a visual representation of equations that what you're talking about is the finding of Dr. Sylvester James. Important to mention that Dr. Sylvester James, even though he's claiming that they found error-correcting codes at the bottom of string theory equations, the visual representation of which called Adinkras, but these Adinkras don't look anything like the code we'd see in the laser. It's actually a very important distinction. And it's important to mention that Dr. Sylvester himself always says that he does not, I repeat, does not believe this means we live in a simulation, which is always funny because the people who quote him never mention this part. He thinks it's something much more bizarre than that, and I'm actually with him. Because simulation is a conversation starter. It is true that you can call it a simulation because it's a computational rendered layer, for sure, but the true nature of the bottom of it is much more crazy and complex than what we mean by the word simulation. So I agree with both of these things, but it's a long conversation. So it has to start somewhere, but the codes in the laser do not look like Adinkras. Okay. What if we are too dumb? So the answer to that is probably yes. To make anything out of the code, and what do you think we might be capable to do if indeed we learn to decipher the code? Open portals. I'm not sure, Andy, but I think the wider question you're trying to ask is, what if we are too dumb to interact with the code in a wise manner? I think that's the real question that you're asking. And the answer to that is maybe, but you can't really put arbitrary lines around knowledge. All you can do is hope for the best. All you can do is find out when something is somewhere and what it's doing, and hopefully you'll figure out what it is quick enough before you do something unwise. But that's true just across the board, right? That's just the nature of the game. And nothing that we perform as a being that is capable of these calculations is outside of what you would call the natural course of things. That's a mistake that a lot of people make, even very smart people, which is very confusing to me, to be quite honest. But somehow, by trying to express what they believe is a humble position, they somehow elevate us to an unreasonable status in reality. So, in other words, people say things like, well, nature does it much wiser than we do, completely not realizing that by saying that, you're saying that somehow you're outside of nature, which of course you're not. You don't have a special position. I mean, us as humans, we are part of the natural course of things. So all the things, even the ones that we consider that we're doing that are not great, like pollution and plastic and the things that we have to amend about our behavior and all of that stuff, all of that is natural. So the distinction is just a false distinction. What we want to be talking about is the impulse that we feel that has something to do with constructive attitudes and ones that include more elements of the holistic perspective, and ones that seem to only include us versus taking into account all the other things that are happening around us. So that is a good distinction. One modality leads you to a more expansive and a more inclusive world in which you actually care for the environment and care for your other fellow human beings and all the good things that you want to postulate, without for 1 second creating this weird distinction between us and nature. In the other modality, you're behaving more like Cancer. You only care about yourself and what you gain, and that's how you basically destroy the planet. Well, you don't really destroy the planet. That's also hubris. The planet is going to be fine, as George Carlin very famously said. It's not going anywhere. We are. So, unless we get our act together, the only thing that's going to disappear is us. So, don't worry about the planet. Worry about us. In the sense that, unless we create an environment that is more suitable for our future, we're not going to have one. And I think this kind of way of looking at things is a lot healthier because A, it doesn't pose us as separate from nature, and it doesn't paint us as a disease, which we're not. We're simply some kind of a function that is trying to figure itself out, and we have a lot more degrees of freedom of awareness, which makes it much more difficult to place ourselves in some kind of an equilibrium, because the less degrees of freedom you have, the easier it is to be in equilibrium. The falsity of all these quips is that we say things like, well, look at nature. Everything is balanced and everything only stays within the bound of what it needs. That's only because whatever that is does not know how to do anything else. I always say, which is a little bit of a silly example, of course, but if lions knew how, they would take over the earth. They just have no idea how. We happen to know how, and we, to a large extent, we did. But we're actually the creatures that are capable of understanding these things, and yet sometimes we pick the more noble route. And the fact that we're doing that actually places us in somewhat of a very delicate position in this corner of the universe, in which we have the choice to do otherwise. Not to get into the whole free will discussion, because it's a 3-hour conversation, but there's a very important distinction there. We are not a disease, we are not a problem, and we're not outside of nature. We are a very advanced function that is trying to figure itself out. So we get to give ourselves a break, while at the same time understanding that we have a responsibility to get our act together and to be the protectors of this layer of reality. One way that I really like to think about this is that this is something that Terence McKenna once said, that maybe the Earth as an organism, because of its size, can also see further into the temporal dimension. In other words, just like if something is taller, it can see further because of the geometry of how light propagates and how things move. In the same logic, if something is much bigger in space, it might be the case that that thing can actually see further into the future. Just postulation. So if we play this thought game, what if Gaia, Mother Gaia, the Earth, could see much further into the future, and after the impact that it suffered after the dinosaurs, it said, okay, I need to figure something out that will protect me from these kind of things that come from space. And then it slowly but surely basically created some kind of a scenario in which creatures like us could evolve so they can actually figure out a way to protect the earth from all kinds of external bodies. I like this kind of way of thinking because it really puts things in perspective and reminds us that even though, yes, we can be a nuisance and we can be dangerous and we can be all the negative things that we want to say about ourselves, but we're not just that. We're also a very beautiful thing. And in fact, if we put our focus in the right place, if another meteor comes right now, like happened with the dinosaurs, the only thing at the moment on the entire Earth that can potentially save the entire biosphere is us. And I love looking at it this way because I think it gives a different emphasis on what we're capable of. And also it gives us a little bit of a reason to become the greater version of ourselves. And at the same time, it does not demonize technology, does not demonize the human nature. It doesn't create conflict or separation. It is, as far as I can tell, the most holistic way of seeing the current picture. And to all the people that saying, well, we should just go back to the old ways and we should stop all this like development and all that stuff. I think that's just a misplaced red flag, because ultimately, the grand scheme of things, you can sit around a fire and hug and love and all of that stuff, and it's wonderful. But eventually, the sun will become a red giant and will engulf the earth with everything on it. So, if you think that every civilization that is capable of thinking beyond a certain point of understanding should still only live as long as its parent star, then okay, you're right on. I would disagree with that. I think there's a reason why we have the intellect that we do, and it needs to be utilized for us to survive and then take life with us into the greater universe. I think the spark of life is a very unique thing, at least in our four-dimensional space-time, and I think it needs to keep propagating through space-time, and this is why things like us makes it possible for life to expand through the universe. And any idea that talks about some other beings that are wiser than us, it's basically kind of like being an ostrich burying your head in the sand, saying we have no responsibility. We do, because we know how to do certain things that other animals can't. I don't even know what the original question was, but here we are. See you, Cal. Thank you, brother. Oh, hey, Lauren, I just saw your comment. No problem, but I think if I'm not mistaken, you have to request it. Let me see. Lauren King, right? Let me see if I can... I don't know if it allows me to do that. Hold on. Yeah, I think it has something to do with how many people you have. I'll look into it in one moment. I'm going to go through a couple more questions, and if you're still around, I'll see if I can pull you up from my end. No problem. Okay. Okay, let me see. What does stochastic patterns can reveal the code? Are you saying the entities can communicate through stochastic patterns like the laser? What other mediums? How can you... Any stochastic patterns, as far as I understand. Rob TV was saying, I wanted to overcome this, relating to what he said before about the noise on TV. I wanted to overcome these feelings, so one night I turned the TV on at full volume without a station. I went to bed, closed my eyes, and laid there until that anxious feeling went away. So would you say that it's something that you think you just overcame the fear, basically? Esotericist. If the website you see on the screen right now, codeofreality.com, that's when you can see what you need to get the laser. You can either get the one we make, or you can just copy the list that we left of all the parts that you can get from Amazon, and you can just source it from anywhere you want. Just make sure that the specs are the same. Never above 5 milliwatts, never ever. Never above 5 milliwatts output, because it can actually do damage to your cornea, and it has to be diffracted. That's really the only two prerequisites, I would say. When I opened my eyes in the dark room and looked around, very every stitch of light that was cast from the TV looked like a TV static, not just diffused light, very detailed snow. Interesting. Then once my eyes adjusted to the darkness, I could see it everywhere. I've never experienced anything like that before and haven't tried again. But the immersion therapy helped me overcome that anxiety. Thank you for sharing, Rob. That is actually a very interesting story. Nico, thank you so much, brother. Love you, man. Thank you for the hearts and the roses. I feel very loved. What if we are too dumb to make anything other? Oh, okay, read that one. That's what prompted my whole response. Thank you for reminding me. I have no tangent proof. You mean tangible proof? But I saw what looked similar to hexadecimal on my jeans. Yes, you are exactly right. I would love if you email me more about this, because I can't get into the details right now because it's too long and a little dry, to be honest. But Zook89, if you email me at lasersimulationx@gmail.com, I would love to talk to you about this. Holy jeez, I just watched the description of the console and what... so you put the gloves on and the goggles. What is the next video coming out on the console? Yeah, soon enough. Does the console you see now appear in the same spot every time or random areas? Same spot. The body of the console appears in the same places. And I can interact with it, yes. It's going to be all in the new video. It's holographic projection. Computers send you mail. Computer, there's Gaia. Man, it's hologram. Okay, good. I hope the email is a little bit more organized than this. Or those. Evan is saying, what other stochastic pattern? Okay, we read that. You've tried with the fog machine. You can't do anything with a fog machine or smoke. This is me saying that because you have random scattering. Thank you, Christina. If you, I appreciate you. If you use a fog machine, what you have is random scattering of the photons. You need photons to come back from the same direction often enough for you to see anything, so a fog machine will definitely not work. I did actually try it with smoke just for the kick of it, but of course nothing happened because it's impossible to do it with a smoke machine. Huge chips processor circuit is up to scene. Wrong sun isn't... Wait. Wrong sun is no star. It's the biblical wheel within a wheel, which is holographic light to matter processor. Chippest little chippest codes are sent through light. Okay. Do you think the code you witnessed... Thank you, Stephen Borg. I appreciate you. Do you think the code you witnessed is because the frequency of light is being altered? No, because it seems to be in the surface, and it doesn't matter what you projected on, it's the same. Where are you from? Where is the molecule legal? I don't know where it's legal. Maybe Colorado, I have no idea. Definitely not where I'm from. Seem like this is alien tech of some kind. If that console is legit and others get there after the laser. No, people got there without any laser. That's the weird part. I just did the molecule laser thing, green laser, and oh my god, there's definitely something there. Thank you, Jeremy, for verifying another one. And yeah, thank you for sharing. I appreciate you. Yeah, it's kind of a... Today I also had somebody who was sharing their experience, and he said, I'll be honest, I'm very experienced with the molecule, and the first thing I thought was like, oh, you're just pulling a fast one on everybody who doesn't know what, about the molecule and stuff. And he said, and this is his words, he said, so when I actually saw the code, I had to pick up my jaw from the floor. I couldn't believe this was actually happening. And that's the reactions that you see on the video too, because you can't really fake that reaction. Or you can't fake it reliably like that. If this is a simulation, why are... But thank you so much, Jeremy, for sharing. Really, I appreciate that. If this is a simulation, why are so many of us stuck staring at our phones? Well, I understand the nature of your question and the spirit with which you're asking the question, and I agree with you. I think... So it relies on what is meant by the word simulation. Simulation does not mean fake, or it doesn't mean that it's the future is already determined. It means that the environment is a computationally rendered environment. Everything else is open-ended. So there's really no difference in terms of how you view the world in terms of the laws of physics. That everything is still intact. It's just that whatever renders that. Thank you, Tyler. Oh, here's Tyler's in the house. Tyler was the one that actually told me that story. Appreciate that you're here, brother. And yeah, so basically the laws of physics would be, under the image that I'm presenting, the laws of physics would be the same. They're just rendered by a deeper computational environment, which again, this is not a new idea. This goes all the way back to Wheeler. He coined the phrase "it from bit." And as I'm sure most of you know, he was a very famous genius physicist. So this is not a new idea. And in fact, I would say that the whole idea probably goes way further than that. Plato's cave is basically the simulation. So, okay, Lauren, I'm going to bring you on. Let's see if I can do this from my end. Hold on. And then actually today, I'll probably have to adjourn with that. Have you heard anything during the experiment? You can hear if you play a frequency. That's a great question. If you play like 42 hertz or 100 hertz in headphones, you can actually hear the space. I have experienced something very similar before without a laser, but was seeing moving pictures. It's difficult to focus in on, but consistently there, and without the molecule. Chavez is saying, I recently was doing meditation and my ego kept blocking me. Then I started getting surface level realizations. Why am I fighting myself so much? Any advice? Yes, it's actually I do have an advice. So this is actually part of the process. I'm not sure what is the nature of the way that you do meditation. If you want to share here, that would be helpful. Is there a particular type of meditation, or you're just talking about that you close your eyes and you try and relax? Like, because meditation is a very broad spectrum word, and it means a lot of different things to a lot of different people. But what meditation really is a focus on a particular aspect of our attention. And I guess the bullseye of the mandala, the final aim, if you're talking about like meditation, is to essentially have the experience or realize that the self that we feel that we have is not actually there. There's just complete disassociation from what we feel is the self. And that opens a whole window of freedom that didn't exist before. So now, if you have a situation where you're resisting yourself, what you might want to look at is the specifics of what kind of meditation you're doing, and maybe if it wasn't that structured, to seek a more structured meditation. Something I was telling Tyler today as well, which is that I always recommend anybody to sign up for a Vipassana retreat. They're free, they're everywhere. All you got to do is allocate 10 days of your life. What it allows you to do is you have 10 days of complete silence in which you're being taught a technique, and you do nothing else but that. And just like with everything else, it's like a boot camp. So when you do something a lot in a short period of time, you learn so much about it that you could never do if you would stretch it over years. It allows you to have a structured attitude towards what meditation really is, and also it's the closest form to what the Buddha actually taught. There's a lot of different kinds of meditation, and they are designed to do different things. For example, Anapana, the meditation of paying attention to your breath, which is not a breathing meditation, by the way, it's just paying attention to the breath the way it appears, different, is designed to quiet the mind, to calm you down. Dzogchen, specifically designed to give you this experience of no self. Vipassana is designed to go the full path, so like full liberation, like that's the only goal. So it definitely doesn't always feel like a bubble bath, it doesn't always feel great, but the aim of it is to fully liberate you, to fully free you. And depending on exactly where you are in your trajectory and understanding of what meditation is, I would say you have to pick the right practice. So it's almost like if you would be practicing for something very, very complex, you would pick a particular aspect of that complex thing and you would train in that first to help you build up the other skills. It's always a weird example to use in this context, but for example, if you do MMA, which requires your full set of skills of being able to fight somebody else, sometimes you have to work on a particular part of the set of skills to help you strengthen the rest of them. So maybe you need more groundwork. Maybe you need a little bit more, striking. Maybe you need just work on your cardio. Whatever it is that is a little weak, that is the thing you need to strengthen. The reason the Vipassana, I think, is very helpful is because it kind of addresses the full set of skills from a bird's eye view, and from there, it's kind of easy to see what is actually missing. So I would say that a more structured form of meditation, maybe download an app that can help you, either Sam Harris's Waking Up or some other meditation app. I think a structured way towards a meditation might help, and listening to some people who really know what they're doing in that space instead of just doing kind of like a general aspect meditation, because that very often is not really meditation, because you're not actually paying attention. There's no actual progression, and it's not really clear what you're doing there. Usually the resistance means that you're focusing, you allowing too much attention on your thoughts, which is actually the opposite of what you're trying to do in a meditation. You're not trying to quiet your mind or make it less thought filled, but you are trying to train yourself to disengage from whatever the thoughts are. And unless you know exactly how to do that, there are techniques. It's something that you might want to listen to somebody who really know what they're doing. So I hope this helps. True, it's not structured at all. I did inner child and it worked great the very first time. So I think I came into this thinking it would be easy because I get the concept, but man, I'll look into class. Yeah. Look up Vipassana. It's funny because today this is the second time I recommended it, but I guess it comes Vipassana and then the place where you live. Okay? And it will show you the closest center. They're free. They're donation based only. You can always donate in the end whatever you want, or don't. It depends on what you want. It's completely free. You just have to sign up. Usually it's like 3 months of a waiting list, and you just go. It's 10 days, no phone, no nothing, and you're being taught one of the most, I think, effective techniques. Yeah, absolutely. True, it's not structured. Okay, I was meditating a while back, and I was wondering if you know why I started vibrating, and I actually had no thoughts whatsoever, but I was wondering about the vibration. Thank you for Senior Steak 777, and Lauren, I haven't forgotten about you. I'm going to bring you up in one moment. So, just and please don't take this the wrong way, Senor. Senor Steak. Okay. There is no way you had no thoughts. Let's just start there. So, because that's just not a state of being that is possible, not even for monks that have been doing it for 60 years. Nobody's ever claiming to have no thoughts. Thoughts are always there. What you can is not be aware that the thoughts are so clustered that you're not even realizing that you're thinking. Now that's possible. It is literally an impossible state what you're describing. But it is often people think that they don't think when in fact they think so rapidly that they don't even realize they're thinking. After a little while, you start seeing gaps between the thoughts, and then you go, oh, okay. Now, the vibration is a very common thing because there's a lot of different kinds of energies that are released during paying attention to the meditation. And it depends on what perspective you're looking from, so I don't want to confuse and make it too conceptual. But, for example, specifically in Vipassana, they would tell you to keep working. So what the Buddha taught is that this doesn't matter. And in fact, this attitude of this doesn't matter should continue indefinitely. That's the whole point. That you start kind of like going up the levels of like awareness of more and more and more than just your immediate body. And a lot of things will come up. Some of them are pleasant, some of them are unpleasant. Your only job is to stay in the middle. Not push, don't pull. When something is pleasant, don't get attached to it. When something is unpleasant, don't push it. Just be there. That's really the trick and the skill, all the way to the end. So basically, according to the Buddha, no matter, you're going to get a lot of interesting content. You're going to get a lot of vibrations and then visuals and then visions and then all kinds of things. Your job is to say, it doesn't matter, and just continue. And that is actually a very tricky thing to do. But depending on, so for example, in the Kundalini meditation of any kind, there's a lot of kinds, they would say, okay, try and do something with it. They would say, okay, this vibration is a Kundalini power and you have to try and channel it and you have to do all this stuff. So it really depends what frame you're looking through. This is why I said that not all meditations are the same. Each one of them is designed to do a particular thing, and you need to understand what they are according to also the thing that you're trying to achieve. If you're talking about full liberation, like full freedom, it's a big undertaking, but that will require you to relinquish any attachment or the need to know the importance of whatever it is. So you would just have to kind of just keep going. Okay, I hope this helps. I do have to jump off in a moment, so I'm going to bring Lauren on. If she's still on, let's find out. Let's see. There we go. I sent you an invite. How are you, Lauren?
Good, how are you?
I'm doing amazing. Good to have you.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Absolutely.
So, do you want to hear about my experiences, or because I sent you a message, I guess, on Instagram, and have struggled to find, and I stumbled across your video today. Actually, the first time I opened TikTok in ages, and it was just there, and it was just after experiencing DMT for on the weekend again,
Just
like having
just a
another
quick thing,
experience
just
of
so you
it.
know, I do have to stop you there. So like on TikTok at least, we should
Yeah.
definitely refrain from saying that because they will flag the chat. Just so you know.
Yeah. Okay.
Okay.
Perfect.
You can
I'll be
just
careful with
say
that.
the molecule, but I know it's a natural thing. It just when naturally speaks. So
Awesome.
cool.
Thank you.
Go ahead.
So yeah, I saw your video and briefly heard about the red light and things like that, and what was kind of described with what everyone else was seeing, and having a very similar or seeing the same thing. And I've seen what I believe to be similar on different hallucinogenics, on mushrooms and DMT. So at different times, and whether it's at a certain level that I reach, or if it's I don't know, just that I'm able to see it at that point in time for whatever reason that I'm allowed to see it. But it's different levels of, I guess, what I've described to other people as symbols, or kind of like hieroglyphics and then numbers, and different levels. And I try to always see and not look, because if I go looking, then I kind of don't see the bigger picture. But yeah, it was really interesting to see your videos today around that, because I've kind of struggled with what I do see, and haven't really met or talked to anyone that sees at the level I do on hallucinogenics.
So you see it only on substances, or you also see it without at this point?
I can see it without. So I guess for the level of how long they're meant to last, I see them for a lot longer afterwards, for days, and sometimes when I'm really focused, or if I'm focused on my breathing, I will be able to see certain qualities of that at different times, but it kind of depends on my mindset and where I'm at. I have to be in a really kind of calm state to see that, or really tired. Sometimes I see it more. A lot of the time I see energy everywhere, or how I've described that. But that's different. The energy I see is different to, I guess, what I would have considered some kind of code.
Right. Was there an uptake in all of these things since 2019 about there, or no?
Yeah, definitely. So my whole life have felt that I have some kind of connection to whether it be just something else, growing up. And I always thought that hallucinogenics was something that I needed to experience. Wasn't really around people that I could do that with, or express my kind of pull to do that, until I split with my ex-husband in 2000, or like 3 years ago. But it was the 2 years leading up to that I had more of a pull to walk away from
The big change, yeah. So one thing okay, so first of all, and actually to tie it to what you're talking about as well, there's a comment here that is very important to me, because I do see a little bit of what we're doing here is somewhat of a bridge between what, how scientists would view things and how spiritual people would view things. I think it's important that we kind of come to some convergence on certain things. And the question here is, I am very anti-woo, word like vibration, energy, etc. Is there a better way to describe this? That's a great question, because I'm very sympathetic to this. And I will lead with that into what you were asking. So first of all, D. Solly in New York City, thank you for that question. So just to be very clear, I think in this particular case, what was described on YouTube is literally what it feels like, and there's no better way to describe it. I'm with you that it is difficult to hear people saying things like energies and dimensions and quantum when they have no idea what that means. So I understand the spirit with which you're asking the question. But in this case, if you do something simple, like if you put your hand down and you literally if I tell you just feel your hand, right? After a few minutes, or even after a few seconds, you're going to start feeling something there. Now, obviously, your rational mind is going to say, okay, but I'm just putting my attention there. So what? Like, sure, that's fine, however you define this. But then if you stay there for a little while, you're going to start feeling vibration. You're going to start feeling vibrations in the hand. I think that's all that the person meant. And the more you do a meditation practice, what you realize is that actually the language used to describe these things from a simple observational point of view about what it's like to be you in any given moment when you're paying a lot of attention to it is actually not that far from what people say in the woo context. So basically, if you feel your body long enough, it's not just kind of like the way it feels when your arm falls asleep. So it's not that kind of a vibration. It's much more free flowing, and you can actually play with it. You can actually move it from one side to another. Now, we're not talking about right now about what is the ontology of this, and does that mean that there's a spiritual dimension that we control? I'm not talking about that. The experience is that there's some kind of vibration somewhere in the body, and that's an indicator that something is happening and that thing is alive. However it comes about, it doesn't matter. So I'm not going to go too deeply into this whole, conversation about, how we should actually talk about these things that might cater to both ways of looking at the world. But I maybe I want to create a little bridge there for you, which is, in this particular case, what is meant by vibration is literally vibration somewhere in the body, the way it's felt. So maybe that kind of relaxes your resistance machinery on the subject. And we can open the subject more in depth tomorrow. To your question, Lauren, around the same lines, first of all, what's interesting is that I actually come from a much more physicalist perspective towards the world. And to me, all this stuff was relatively new, especially, after I started meeting people that, like you're saying, they see energies and they see codes and they see all this stuff. Until I discovered what I discovered and I started interacting with it, I would give it a second thought. Like, I would just be like, all right, cool, like, I don't know what that means, and I would just move on, right? And this is something that now, because I was on both ends of the perception, I'm extremely sensitive to, because I realize that very often people just nod, but they don't actually listen or absorb what you said. But it goes both ways. Like, if I don't speak your language game, you would just kind of nod to be polite, but you're not listening to me, and that works on both sides. Like I would do it to like a person who would be speaking the more woo spiritual language, because I know I just don't want to waste the energy of trying to explain to them that they're confused, or that was my perception, obviously, right? And the other side does that too. They're like listening to a more clicky way of expressing the world. When more scientifically minded people kind of describe things in a way that feels a little bit more dry and boring and soulless to people that are more connected to energy. And they do the same. They just kind of listen to them to be polite, and then they just ignore it. So I always notice when that happens. And this is why I'm trying to bridge that gap. So I can tell you without a shadow of a doubt that, first of all, and you probably already know this, but first of all, you're not crazy. And there's a lot of people like you. You'd be surprised how many. And the reason I'm asking about 2019 is because there seemed to, I'm not claiming to know exactly what is going on, but from 2019, there seemed to have been some kind of an uprise, like an opening of something that allows for more of that content to come in. So the people that were already sensitive to it, that's just what I've noticed over time. The people that were sensitive to it already, maybe they had it since they were a little kid and they didn't suppress it, or they just picked it up like in a few years prior to that. All of a sudden they got a crazy boost and they started like feeling and seeing and all that stuff, which is, it sounds like it's exactly what you're describing. And then even people who were a little bit more hard-headed like myself, even for us, there's this opening of understanding that something bigger is going on, and it would talk to us in the way that we understand. So I guess it spoke to me through the discovery. And I do notice that when I meet people that are more of the scientific flavor, some of them are opening up to it, and some of them are still resisting. And the more you resist this, the more friction it creates, and the more difficult it is to be you in any given moment, which of course was always the case, but now it's very accentuated because now there's a lot more of it. I always describe it in terms of like, if this was a video game, we're now entering a stage where some of the tools that we could before only see, now they became available. They were grayed out before and we could kind of see them, but now they became ready for use. You can actually use them. And if it's from manifestation power, if it's from connecting and feeling other people, like truly feeling their energy, all of these kind of things that, again, I'll fully admit was very uncomfortable for me to entertain as a real thing. But for all the listeners here who are more kind of like that are more like, like you said, like I don't like the woo. I'm telling you, there's definitely something big there.
So a few years ago, probably 4 or 5 years ago, I decided I just wanted to be able to be. I guess, and like be my true self. And it's not that it's like you said, words used is just like a descriptor more than anything, because it's hard to find the right words to explain to something that people haven't seen or felt before. So you use a broad term to do so. So I know that the smartest man knows he knows nothing, realistically. And I am very new to all this. I'm 33, and this is really amped up for me in a quick period of time. So I'm only learning. So I don't take anything I say. I don't have any defined term of what I see or what I've experienced, because I can't, because I don't know enough, and I may never know enough. It's just more that I know I've experienced things that I wholeheartedly know I've experienced and felt, and I don't have a shadow of a doubt around that. But more for me now, it's just to kind of expand on that and see where that takes me. And it's always a journey, and everyone else's journey is different. So I'm just kind of letting it go, and I don't take them all the time. I think I heard you took it 5,000 times in a year or something, and that to me, I'm like, that's.
I'm not a good example. It's like, yeah.
But I can't do it that often. I've got kids and things, so it always feels like when the time's right, I know when to take it. But I just kind of take it as it goes and experience what I experience. But I know there's more for me in that kind of side, but. I'm never putting on anyone that this is the way it is, because I don't know, and I don't know if I ever will know, or if we all ever will know. But it's a beautiful experience, and I'm enjoying it.
So first of all, business, so good to see you, brother. I haven't seen you in a while, and I see we also have Matthew here, some of the regulars. Great to see you guys. Thank you. So let me tell you something, Lauren. So first of all, I agree with everything you said. If I may just offer a slight modification to how I think it's better. I feel like it's a better attitude around it, right? So I understand the whole thing of like, it's so clear that the more you know, the more you understand how little you know, right? So I'm fully on board there. I think that we're ready for something a little different as a species, in terms of also taking some responsibility for what we do know. So I would say that all of us are nodes on this giant thing, whatever it is. So yes, we're not supposed to pretend to know everything, and this is also why whenever I see all these comments, again from both directions, both from the physics direction and both from the spiritual direction, there's too much certainty around. We're ascending, it's the Galactian whatever, or no, it's all quantum fields. I was like, relax with the certainty a little bit, because there's a lot more going on than anybody realizes. That's first of all. Second of all. We do want, I think, to take responsibility for the little thing that we do know. So I found that if we look at that little thing we know from our corner of perception of existence, we actually bring value. It's important to stay humble, I agree, but at the same time, not to take responsibility and therefore bring the gift of what we can deliver as the uniqueness of ourselves, knowing the little thing that we do know. It's also almost like doing a disservice to existence. So like the fact that you're seeing these energies, the fact that you can probably utilize this for something to help other people, to do certain things, taking, maybe responsibility is the wrong word, but taking the joy of bringing that gift forth and saying, well, I know this little thing, let me bring it to the village and share, because I know that thing can actually do some good in the grand scheme of things. I feel like that is a slightly more, I guess, centered.
Oh,
yeah.
I think that's exactly why I reached out to you today, because I feel like that is, and whether purpose is the right word, but I know I need to share, and I know I need to experience things I do, and when conversations allude to it, explain my experiences or the little bit I have learned. And I have learned so much about myself and other things I do want to share. And that's why I reached out to you, because I feel a lot of the time I guess I can't, because I'm from Australia. Obviously, I don't know if geographical location has anything to do with it. My partner is amazing. He has shamaned me a lot of the way from some difficult experiences I've had through that as well, just through the learning, because it can be a very intense experience at times, especially from what I believe the level I see. But that's what I want to do. Like, I want to share these experiences. I want to know more. I feel like that's what I should be doing. But I'm still a baby in the concept of this and what I am doing. So when the right people come around, like, I know that's what my purpose will be, to share. And finding those right people, like connecting with you today, is just a step in that direction.
And I appreciate you sharing. Yeah, one of the things I'm learning is that there's a huge portion of this transformation, whatever it is, that I am personally not aware of because of the way that I'm wired. And I know that the same is true vice versa, that there's certain things that I can see that I know that the other people that are wired differently can't see. And then it's so clear to me that it's not a competition, but a puzzle we're solving together. Like it's a, oh, you see this, interesting, because that's what I see. How do we connect them? How do we make sense of them together? Exactly, because
So
that's
those
really
puzzle pieces fit
exactly
to get both sides.
we're
Yeah,
solving it together.
100%.
And by
Because
the
I'm
way,
not like a scientist or
sorry, go
anything. Like
ahead.
I don't. Sorry, you go.
No, you go ahead.
I was just saying I've got no background in like physics or science or anything like that. Like, so I don't have the I guess information or knowledge to look at it from that side of things. But I do wholeheartedly love hearing it because I'm always open to hearing it because I'm like, oh, I have this side. How does that fit into the big scheme of things?
Yeah, and I'm the same way with. It's funny because even though I've been a meditator for a long time, and I'm did a lot of meditation retreats and all that stuff, so I'm familiar with the journey. But I guess, and I'm meeting people today that are just like so naturally connected, and I know they're not full of it. Like I know I can feel it. I can see that they're really like open to something. They're so open that they receive some kind of real information, and I can sense it through them, but I can't see it. But I can sense it through them, and I know, and I know, like there's an intuition there. I know that they're not confused. I know that this is real. You can also meet the ones that are still like very ego driven and are confused, but I also see the other thing, and taking that into account is very important. And this is actually like I see, for example, here comment funny because they asked it both on TikTok, and somebody else at the same time asked the same thing on YouTube about CERN, for example. And so, for example, this is a perfect example of when people ask, and this is not to single anyone out because this is a common occurrence, not just with CERN, but with a lot of things. And people ask questions like, well, it's because CERN tried to look for the God particle, or CERN opened some gates or portals. This is like, basically, this is a classical like finger pointing, right? It's like this organization or this thing did this, and now we have to, like, now this is happening. Well, no, the reality is that things just happen, right? If you're talking about the macro scale thing, it's just occurring, it's just happening, and then world events are just a reflection of that. So to point the finger is, well, first of all, it's useless, and also it's not actually doing anything aside from creating even more separation. And this is what I always point out to people that are trying to work the path of like a more spiritual realm, because these are the people that usually point things of this flavor out. And if you notice that's a separation statement. It's like, this organization did this, when in reality, most of CERN is just like regular scientists and just people like you and I, and they just drink coffee in the morning, and this is not a shadowy organization. They're just investigating the world. And I think, and it's funny because one time I asked somebody who was talking like that, and they were very adamant about it, and I asked, do you know any scientists? And luckily they were very, real and actually not like confrontational. And they said no. I said, well, I think you should find a meetup somewhere in which scientists get together and just join, meet some scientists. You'll be surprised. They're usually the nicest people on the planet. they just want to understand the world, and I think it will remedy this idea that somehow people who try to understand the world are also interested in just controlling the world. These are usually very different kind of people. And I think across the board, it's not just in this example, but in many other examples, across the board, this is a good rule to follow. The flip side of that is when people demonize people who are more in the spiritual realm. Examples that we know from history, obviously, the witch burning and all that stuff, right? So that's a perfect example of how it also, this demonization also works in terrible ways to the other side. But we don't want to witch burn anyone ever. Like we want to understand that most people, most of the time, they're just trying to live a good life. And yes, there are psychopaths out there, I'm sure of it. There's like 1% of the population or so. But for the most part, you want to try and view both individual humans and collective organizations, there's nothing wrong about being an organization, as actually trying to do their best at whatever it is. And then things that go wrong, they go wrong because of inadequacy or inability to perform well. Most of the times that's the explanation. It's not because somebody was aiming to, pull some kind of lever that will destroy things, or they don't care. That it's just not. It's not true. Like that's not what most of human nature is, and I think perceiving it that way is actually not helpful. And I never get tired of pointing that out because I feel like it's a very common thing to do, and it's kind of funny to me because it should be the first obvious thing, which is if you want a better world, the first thing you want to do is you want to stop demonizing the world that you already have, and that's why I always prefer to see the most beautiful things. I really think thank you for sharing. Do you have any insights from your side of experience for people that have to do with you observing these energies? Have you noticed? Is there any particular thing that you notice about people? Have you discovered what is the true nature of that gift? Is it that you can see people's transformative energy or something like that, or people transforming your presence or anything of that flavor?
Definitely, I feel like since it's opened up for me, I have a lot more people just in random events in life or down the street or different places I'm at kind of come up to me and open up in a different way. And again, not being spiritual about it at all, because I'm like, I'll talk to anyone. I've got, I hold presence and I trust myself and love talking to people. But I've had a lot of people open up in different ways, and whether it's the right people, I think everyone, like you said, is on their own. You can't, I don't believe you can. Everyone's different, but saying one thing's right or one thing's wrong, let people experience their lives the way they are, and listen to people from whatever they're saying and never be like, no, this is the way it is. And I have these open and honest discussions with people about that and their lives and what they're experiencing. My partner and I have a very special relationship due to, I think, a lot of the energy around and what we create. I think, energy breeds energy. So having that around you, if it is drawn to you in whatever way, and again, whether drawn to you is the wrong word, but there is that pull or draw, and people see that and then they want to discuss it. So I think there's still a lot to learn. Like I said, I'm still learning every day, wondering how do I look into this more? How does this grow in me? And I find a lot of it is breathing, to be really try and be centered, but I find breathing the biggest thing for me. As soon as I go, oh, you just need to breathe, and then I start breathing and focus on that, but not also focusing on it, but being, I guess, conscious about it, has really changed things. So I'm still learning. I think there's a lot more that could happen with that, but I've just got to wait and see what comes, because I don't want to hold any, light or torch to where I want to be or where I want to go, because I think that's putting, an end goal on it, and I don't know what else there is.
Thank you so much for sharing that. That's beautiful. Yeah, I think we can all do a little better at just kind of following our own path and then not try and diminish or de-emphasize anybody else's path. So and I really appreciate you sharing that.
You're so welcome. Thank you so much for having me. It's
Absolutely.
been really great to speak to someone.
And like I told you in the Instagram, this is just because truly, and this is a good opportunity to tell this to everybody. I rarely check my messages on social. When one of my videos is going viral, I do that a little more, but overall I really don't. So if you feel like you're being ignored, I'm just not checking them. So I do sometimes, but if you want to get my attention relatively quickly, just email me, lasersimulationx@gmail.com. I do respond eventually to all the emails, I promise. And Nico said, ever since CERN turned on, the Matrix started glitching, hence Bernstein Bears. Exactly. That's hilarious.
And really quickly, from my point of view, because I stumbled across you so quickly today when I opened TikTok and saw that, I was like, I have to message you.
Sure.
And I did. I still have to deep dive into a lot of everything you've shared, so I'm really excited to kind of look into that and see what you've learned and things like that, because I have a very top level view of that from you at the moment, but I just knew we had to connect to discuss whether the sides of it, and so I really appreciate it.
And I really appreciate you. Yeah, most of the content that is more, in depth would be on YouTube, which is DANGO Thoughts, Dango Thoughts. Thank you so much for coming. And then feel free to come by on any day. Usually we do have some discussions and panels. In the last few weeks, I've been very busy with actually another documentary. So I had less time. I have less time to spend like live, but I still spend some. So whenever you come by, and we can always jump on a quick panel, it will always be a pleasure to have you on.
I would love to. I'll definitely keep in touch and connect with you soon.
Thank you.
Thanks so much.
Okay, so a quick summary here. Second Renaissance. Yes, information is coming. What you do with it in terms of how you citrate your own experience is up to you. You can breathe and breathe out. No need to worry. It may be positive transformation coming. Curate. Yes, I couldn't agree with that more. Thank you, Chavez. It was a blessing. How are you, Danny? Good to see you. And I agree with you. Mickey Stefanov's interview nicely summarizes this direction. Highly recommend to check out this conversation, and highly recommend to check out his work. You can just go to YouTube, Dango Thoughts, my interview with Mickey Stefanov. Good to see you too, brother. Okay, so quick summary. If you want to follow me across platforms, TikTok is Danny Goller, so is Instagram. X is Goller Danny. Twitch is LaserX83, and YouTube, Dango Thoughts, DANGO Thoughts. I'm here every single day, and we're discussing the simulation, science in general, spirituality, religion, spirit, God, whatever comes to mind. And wait, what happens? Oh, okay. I don't know what that is, but in any case, thank you so much, everybody, for joining. I really appreciate that this community is growing and people are contributing and becoming such an integral part of this whole journey, because I do think that this journey involves all of us. I will do more and more and more to engage with people directly. Unfortunately, it obviously requires more of my attention and time of the day. One of the ways that I found to do that is to create a subscription plan on YouTube, and I'm constantly already playing with ideas of how to make it better and better and better. At the moment, it will include some Zoom meetings with me throughout the month, as well as private lives outside of the daily lives, and content that doesn't exist on any of my platforms at the moment. And I'm constantly working on new ideas and perks and all kinds of things. Merch will be available, but I feel like merch is like the least of, the most authentic way of engaging. I feel like maybe my attention is a little bit more valuable, just because we can maybe do fun things like go through particular papers, or we can go through certain theoretical frameworks, and people can actually participate like in real time. We can talk both on Zoom and personal lives. So if you feel inclined and you want to help me grow that part of the channel, more than welcome to do so, and I will welcome that. And that's it. What other housekeeping do we have? I think that's about it. We're almost at the 100th episode, and that's encouraging and amazing. I feel very blessed to be surrounded by such incredible human beings, both in my personal life and in this more extended community. I do feel that we are pulling the attention of the right kind of individuals, and that is very, very encouraging, because I know that I have the ability to see. So this, I don't know why, but my eyes jumped on this comment, so I wasn't taking any more comments, but let me just respond to this. MCV saying, I get frustrated because I know that I have the ability to see, manipulate reality, but I can't remember. So great comment. I do feel that falls under the rubric of what we were talking about before with meditation, which is that even though I understand the frustration might be misplaced. So to all the people that are awakening to their new abilities and whatever it is that they think that new reality is bringing about, one of the most important things, I think, is not to get too attached to kind of gaining superpowers kind of trajectory, but more around how does it feel in the moment to be alive. If it feels more and more amazing, great, that's a good direction. With or without superpower, that's the important thing. And then if on top of that you gain certain abilities, wonderful. But if you're trying to do the ability and you get attached to that ability, I would say that's the equivalent of trying to get more money because you can get money. And all of these attachments, like the Buddha said, attachment is suffering, and that's essentially what's going on. So again, believe me, I'm not lecturing here, because I have a lot of work to do myself for sure. But whenever you're looking from the outside, it's a little easier to see. And to the extent that it's possible, I think all of us, if it gets too crazy, there's a little trick that I do that is not meditation or anything. It's just like a little mind trick that I do to myself. if it gets a little too overbearing, and it does happen sometimes, I would literally just lay down and I would imagine that I'm this leaf that just fell in the fall on this crazy stream, and the stream is insane, right? And the point of this exercise is to understand that there's no way that you as the leaf can fight the stream. You just can't. So just let go. Just no matter how crazy it is, let it take you. And if you believe in higher power and all of that even more, don't worry about it. Just let go, let the stream take you. And when the water is going to calm down, you can transform from a leaf to a little creature that can actually swim. But the point is that if you try and swim while the stream is too crazy, you're just going to exhaust yourself. And by the time that the stream becomes a little more calm, you have no more energy to swim. So it's always better when it's too insane, just don't worry about it. Just literally lay down physically and allow yourself to just surrender for like 5 or 10 minutes. And after that, you can go back to do whatever it is that you have to do, but you have to give yourself that moment. So as trite and as overexpressed this sentiment is, because of course we heard this a billion times before, I'm just reminding everybody that's a really good tool to just allow yourself to be where you are without the need to try and, fight the entire system. Hope this helps in some way. Love you all. Peace and love. See you guys tomorrow. Ciao.